to Learning Unlocked. I'm your host, Britt Bingold. As an instructional specialist in Gilbert, Arizona, I'm a total nerd when it comes to classroom strategies and educational pedagogy. Educators are the key holders to unlocking learning for students. So today, as always, my goal is to provide you with resources and tools, the keys, to enable and accelerate learning for all students. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back, key holders. Before we begin today, I just wanted to do a quick reminder that if you have time to write us a review on Apple Podcasts, we would so appreciate it. The more reviews and ratings we get, the more educators will see our podcast. And so if you like what you're hearing and you think others would too, please head over and provide us a review. We would really appreciate it. Welcome to episode 6 of Learning Unlocked. Today we are discussing becoming a trauma and social emotional learning informed educator. And I have a very special guest today. She is our K-12 prevention specialist for our district. Her name is Cadena, but she goes by Susie, and she was a joy to interview. It was great to talk to her about students, through the lens of this pandemic and how that's affected them socially and emotionally. But then also to think about how these concepts of social emotional learning, which we'll refer to as SEL throughout the interview, and trauma-informed education really does help all students all the time, whether we're in a pandemic or not. So I hope you enjoy the interview with Susie. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited to have Susie on the podcast today, and I hope she's doing well. Susie, why don't you take a minute and just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be a part of this and to be sharing some of the exciting work that we're doing in this topic. My name is, as Brittany mentioned, I'm Susan Cadena, and I am the K-12 Prevention Coordinator for Gilbert Public Schools. I am marking my 16th and a half year with Gilbert Public Schools, in most of it in my current role. And right now, what we're proud to be working on is building up our social emotional learning activities and learning platform through Buzz, and really excited about being able to offer a much needed resource in hopefully a practical way to all of our students, our teachers, and even our families, to that way we can support our students in the best way possible as we come back to engage them. And because I'm really passionate about providing kiddos with all the resources and support systems they need to feel successful, to be successful in whatever path they choose, while we have them, since it's such a limited time. And I am also passionate about learning, and every school year I learn more from kiddos and families that I try to take on to the next school year and the next time I work with someone. So I'm really passionate about that, and hopefully we're able to share some of the exciting work that we're doing in this area. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to have you on. I mean, I have an 8-year-old at home who, as soon as remote learning started and we had some type of schedule, her whole demeanor shifted. I think she needed to see, even remotely, a teacher and some kids. And, I've really just kept her quarantined because of my chronic illness. But I just noticed like she really, really was struggling this summer because she did feel super isolated. And I think there's a lot of kids out there that are like that had a very isolating, anxious, stressful summer because of the pandemic. And my daughter goes to sleep every night and she just says to me, I just don't feel safe. I just don't feel safe. And I said, honey, we're doing everything we can to keep you safe. Would you have any things for like even just parents, teacher parents for their own children but also their students? Any suggestions of like how to help students with that type of anxiety surrounding this pandemic or any other types of trauma that they've experienced?
Absolutely. And what I really like is just you even expressing and adding on that not only does your own kiddo have their own ideas and anxiety about what is happening in the world around them, and even regardless of the age, a lot of kiddos from kindergarten through 12th grade are feeling so many feelings and not even being able to put words on them or to really express them in a way that we can really capture what they're going through. But the adults, as you mentioned, again, we're not only have we welcomed our students back today to join us in online learning, but we are also coming back impacted in some way, shape, or form over what's happened around us in the last few months. And it really seems so much longer. And so, with all of the anxiety, with the feelings of the uncertainty around us, possibly fear, just really what is the what is out there, the unknowns. I really the number one thing that I can that I really try to stress with our social workers and mental health counselors right now is get to know your students, get to know the kiddos coming back. I know that it's hard for us to really gauge, and you want to, maybe show, some love, and you want to make sure that that transcends across the screen to students, but we really want to just get to know them again. For some, we may be familiar with some of the students that we have back in our class, but for a lot of them, it's going to be a face that they've been craving to see in the sense of the teacher and what that person means to them and looks like to them, and knowing that when I see a teacher, I kind of have an idea of what that means to me, and that makes me feel like I know this world, I know what happens here. And so that provides them hopefully with a sense of comfort and safety. But again, it's really getting to know your students and reconnecting with them. I would say that's the first and foremost thing to be doing right now, is just to let them see that friendly face. So glad you're back. You've made the right decision to show up today. I'm so glad to see your faces. We're going to get, and figure this stuff out together. I have feelings about everything that's been going on around me, and we're going to get the opportunity to just kind of reconnect and reestablish our relationships, and really just having provide, well, not having, but providing that welcome feel back to um, everything that's happening. So that way tomorrow they'll feel good about clicking into their classroom again. And then we take that the next step, and then the next step. And so that way, again, it becomes then back to the world that hopefully they feel more comfortable in also.
Right. I mean, I think, and you're right, identifying emotions first and foremost for kids is really hard. I mean, I have a 3-year-old as well who is feeling the same things I think my 8-year-old is feeling, has absolutely no way to express those other than I think a lot of aggression. Right now, he is really angry. And I think it's because, and he does, and I think he misses his daycare. I think he misses his routine. But he can't put words to that right now. And so I have to remember as a parent, like, okay, he's not just acting like this because this is, he's, well, maybe he is, maybe because he's a terrible 3. I don't know. But he's acting like this because he's been stuck in the house for a really long time and hasn't had a lot of social interaction, hasn't been able to go to the park as much. You know what I mean? So I think he's, no matter the age, it's hard, even as an adult, to, that your reactions are and your emotions are because of this pandemic, but you don't really, it's hard to articulate and be, and recognize that, I think, in yourself as a parent and as a teacher. Do you think like, so for the, these first few weeks back, maybe, or even the first week back, having students be able to identify their emotions with their teacher is an important lesson idea, or something that can help build their confidence back as a student. um, is there anything in their teacher toolbox that they could have, that they could offer to students to help them build those relationships? Because I think it's really hard in a large WebEx situation to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes we'll think that we need to really dig deep into that toolbox, but at the same time, merely by just asking certain questions can set the tone, and just even the way someone presents themselves in front of the screen makes a huge difference in setting the stage for that welcoming environment that students are wondering, what is it going to look like, what's it going to feel like, whether I see 10 familiar faces on a screen, more than that or less than that. And I think really just coming up with three essential questions for those morning, just at the very beginning. It could be as simple as, again, how are you feeling? Or what are your goals for today? Who can you ask for help? And, there's ways to expand on that. And I think in with the teachers asking those questions in the back of their minds, there's a couple of things that can help them also understand that, well, it may seem like a very simple question to start the day off with. It may seem like a loaded question, but really, when we're dealing with trauma or just the impact of everything that everyone has been going through, not only have we, the pandemic has created this sense of isolation in so many ways, but then during that time, there have been so many significant events that have occurred having to do with social justice, having to do, with, again, just the economy, with families possibly, having someone in the household that has lost their job, someone, that again was to experience a positive life event and felt that that was taken away from them, graduations, weddings, even students and families and staff that have dealt with the death of a family member, whether it was as a result of COVID or if it was just, a life, not just, but a life event that again have the experience of what we knew how we could deal with it and go through it, that also was very much taken away. And so again, there's grief and loss, and also trying to make sure that we don't minimize that for anyone, because again, everyone has felt it in so many different ways. So even by asking simple questions to start off the day, it's really for teachers to get a gauge for students as far as expecting the unexpected response to a simple question. um, Sometimes kids and kiddos that have dealt with trauma or have experienced some sort of maybe a negative situation. But then we may also be mindful that there might be students that are thriving in these environments because maybe before they were dealing with social anxiety, and now I'm able to, oh, this is great. I'm living the life because I don't have to deal with so many people in my life. So it's trying to balance out all of those personalities and, kiddos that are coming from different places on how, again, we may be asking simple questions, but yet at the same time, expect unexpected responses to those simple questions.
I love that idea. I love the idea of just three simple questions to start off the day to just gauge where your kiddos are at. But I think they need to make sure that the kiddos, and the kiddos could even just type it in the chat. They could even make like, an X if it's a bad day, that way it's not like they're doing like a real deep embarrassing thing until they get to know each other, but they could even do, like simple um key marks, like it's an X if it's a bad day, it's a Y if it's a good day, whatever, to kind of let the teacher know kind of where they're at. And then the teacher's like, well, if I've got all these kids that have X's, I got to bring up my energy a lot, and maybe I need to rework some things during this meeting, because I think a lot of kids are excited to be back, but it's a stressful environment. And I know a lot of, I've been fortunate not to lose anyone. I've had several of my family have been positive, but I haven't lost anyone. But I've had my cousin did lose her grandma on the other side, and just the trauma that her children have gone through, not to be able to say goodbye the way they normally would and not have a service the way that they normally would, has really impacted their summer. And I'm thinking of all those kids that have had those types of events happen, and then they need to kind of come in and they need to share their feelings, because I think being aware of their feelings and then getting that off their chest before a lesson even happens is really important.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, just honoring where everyone is coming from, because again, we recognize and I think the hardest part still for some is trying to process the fact that we had these students and these kiddos that we were working with and that we built a great relationship with up until March. So there was never that opportunity to kind of transition that relationship into what we're used to, closure of the school year and have closure and say goodbye, and whether they're sixth graders moving on to seventh grade, eighth grade moving on to ninth grade, and those kiddos that are graduating. So there was that gap left that we had this great relationship with students, but then now we're coming into it where now in front of me are kiddos that I may not know most of them, and I'm having to start a relationship where I'm still having feelings about not having ended, not ended in a bad way, but that closure and transition that I didn't have the opportunity to do. So it's even recognizing that there's those gaps, and that's where I feel that reconnection is going to be so important, because we also need to remember, and I know that the teachers know who they have not even been able to connect with since March. And and students like that are also on on teachers' minds as well. So it's really about remembering to honor where everyone is coming from, because everyone is going to have a story, and some of their responses to how they are dealing with whatever they're coming to us with may seem appropriate, may not. Because again, as you mentioned earlier, students we kind of don't even know how to feel what we're feeling. You kind of walk around dazed at the moment, and people will ask you, "Hey, how you doing?" and "How's everything going?" And I think sometimes at this point, for some of us, we've run out of how to answer.
I know.
I don't even know. It's
You're like, well, I think I don't even know what day it is. Like we started with my students, my children, my own personal children. We wake up pretty early, and so I started a morning meeting just with my 8-year-old and 3-year-old, just mainly so I could write the date and know the weather. Because honestly, I don't. All the days are running together, and then it kind of started, doing some preschool stuff with my kid, and my 8-year-old loves it because we read books together, we talk about our feelings, and then our day starts. And so I think that's really helped us, is kind of building that routine into our day, as well as a parent, but also as a teacher, before their actual remote learning starts. But I think teachers in general right now, their confidence as a teacher has been completely shaken. And I think, technology, even past the tech part of it, I just think in general, they're like, now I'm teaching a new curriculum and I got to figure out how that works. And I feel like I always do this thing and now I can't do that, because so I feel like they're just really shook by this shift. And I was wondering, like, a lot of teachers are like, and I got to incorporate SEL and trauma and I haven't been trained. Like, for those teachers that haven't been necessarily formally trained in this, can you just give us an overview of kind of what it is? What is, I mean, I think we've been talking about it mostly already, but just what are the components of these factors that they should be kind of aware of and looking for as they proceed through, obviously, remote learning for however long we're there, but also maybe into the rest of the year, hopefully, if we get to go back face to face? Because I don't, I know they feel like they haven't been formally trained, some of them, but that doesn't mean they can't get information and do these things with their students.
right, right. And I really think that first and foremost, as far as the what do they need to do if there hasn't been a lot of training, but really there's so much training has already gone into classroom management,
Right. Yeah,
and
that's true.
also how to build an inclusive, safe, and supportive learning environment for students, which when we look at it just at that from that standpoint, that is social emotional learning, because we're creating a space for students where they're going to feel safe to learn. And by providing the expectations, the consistency, and the structure is truly going to help students who have experienced trauma, because they again will be triggered by the lack of clear structures, boundaries, and routines. That's kind of the last few months in a nutshell, right? The lack of clear structures, boundaries, and routines.
Dude, I'm triggered by that too.
Absolutely.
I'm like,
Exactly,
I wanna go
exactly.
back to work. I love my kids,
Exactly.
but I wanna go back to work. I think
Absolutely.
that really Susie, that helps a lot. I think that's gonna make teachers feel a little I think they're gonna breathe a little bit because I think they saw that block of time and thought, "I have no idea what I'm doing with that." And when you say it's just that basic classroom management of having structure and having routine is first and foremost helpful for these types of kiddos and helpful for all of us as adults. I think that's going to help a lot of people that feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't get the class on this in college or whatever it is. But I think absolutely that's super helpful.
Yes. And just knowing, that we need to cut ourselves some slack and give ourselves a break, and to know that again, there's so many things that they're already doing. Because anytime we hear, right, we're going to need to be providing 15 minutes of SEL intervention every day, and we're going to create a shell, that is in the Buzz platform that is going to need to be utilized with all these activities. And then that's just the SEL component on top of everything else that needs to be. But really, if we go back and kind of like chunk it out, really, again, I cannot emphasize just by providing classroom consistency, setting up the day to be somewhat structured, setting those clear expectations. And then the best thing too that teachers do is, regardless of what the grade level is, just providing that reliable warmth and the love will help stressed students feel safe. And it hopefully will bring down that sense of like, oh, that everybody is, going from 0 to 60. But again, that normalcy is going to provide healing, I think, and comforting, especially for students and hopefully for the teacher themselves that don't feel that they have any control in their lives. But hopefully they'll find that safe space when I do click, I'm ready, for my day to start, and I see my teacher and I see fellow students, and knowing that, oh, you know what, I'm going to tune in right now, because right now is where I'm going to have, again, find the consistency and some love at the same time. And again, I'm going to feel a sense of control for the time being. And really, that's what SEL is all about. That's in its simplistic, in the most simplistic way. That is the best way and the best training, and I put that in quotes. And really just sharing that really helps to develop a sense of control over students' environment, and hopefully even for the teachers, they can feel that as they also lay the foundation for that in their classes every day. And right there, that's their 15 minutes of SEL every day, setting that tone. And then the resources that we've provided are for that, so that supplemental information. And then once the class, again, has now felt and feels a bit more structured, and kids are getting into their groove, and the learning is flowing, and again, hopefully getting that positive vibe, then that's when we can get a little bit more serious about social emotional training and ways to process stress and help themselves and their students heal from experiences. And we hopefully have provided enough of the resources and activities that deal with things like breathing exercises and mindfulness practices that will help provide students with just a moment of pause to reflect on their emotional state, even if it means taking a, okay, class, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a small break, and we're going to talk about some breathing for just a moment. And you just, and everything is dropped for just a few minutes to just kind of engage, and where's everybody at? And just let's think about the noises that we're hearing, and whatever, some of these activities flow into some of the subject matter. Hopefully that again provides that small break that is needed for the teachers and for the kiddos just to regroup, and then we can go back into the flow again. Again, that is the beauty of social emotional learning, is that it can take place in so many areas, so many subject areas, and again, in the most simplistic form.
I love that idea of taking breaks and just breathing because and or even just having a moment to just maybe take a just a pause of silence, even just to be like okay, and maybe they might be thinking about what you just taught, but they might also be thinking about whatever they need to think about for a second. Because I think a lot of times those because there's so many live sessions throughout the day, they need those breaks, and they don't even, and those breaks do not need to necessarily be connected with what they just did. They can be those mindfulness techniques, those breathing, those meditation techniques. But I think also it's important for teachers to really, have a structure for their WebEx live sessions, because I think, in spring we just kind of, it was a crisis. We went into crisis mode, and here we were, and those poor teachers were looking at feet and noses and all kinds of stuff on their WebEx screens. I mean, kids were just all over the place. Like, look, here's my dog, and oh, and I have a fish, and you know what I mean? And like, I think if teachers really, instead of a syllabus, had clear WebEx norms, I think the stress management for students and teachers would come down a ton. Like, I want to see your face, and I want you to be sitting straight forward, and just like having those expectations of, you need to be muted. If you're not going to be muted, I'll be removing you to the lobby, because this is a space where we need to be respectful of each other. I think those strict things at the beginning might be helpful for all the kids, because when you see, especially the littles, they get so squirrely, and then the big kids get so tired. I think if you've got those norms set up for the WebEx meetings, and now you're taking breaks and incorporating some of what you're talking about, the students are going to maybe want to be more motivated to come back, because they know it's organized, there's structure. I'm going to have some breaks. I'm going to learn a lot. My teacher cares enough about me to make this experience virtually as structured and as productive and engaging as possible.
Absolutely. And again, some of those, as you mentioned, those, taking the breaks, it's kind of like changing the channel.
Yeah,
You just kind of all of a sudden it's like, all right, if we're going down this path where we feel, and can see negativity flowing throughout the session, and kind of like we're just need to change the channel for just a moment, because we're going to help, regroup. And it could be something that is, just as you mentioned, a thought break. And that, again, either we focus on something where we do something quick, or we do something, with older students. They, there's, for example, like a Mad Lib we're going to do really briefly. And so again, it just takes them out of the line of their current thinking. So again, if we find, and after we get to know our students for a little bit more, we can kind of see and gauge, like, oh, Susie over there is kind of, I'm losing her. I can tell that she's not engaged at the moment. So again, if I can quickly change the channel for her, maybe, again, I can get her to re-engage. And then maybe even insert, as I mentioned uh, before, some questions that might elicit, again, a different thought process. And it may be something that is deep. It may be something that is simple. It could be something like, so, as we're talking about, whether it's social studies, or whether it's we're talking about science or math, what has been an aha moment? I'm sure you've been cooking a lot with your, maybe, practicing your baking skills at home, or what is something that you've recently learned about, and again, it could be whatever it was that they were cooking or baking, or something else that, that they might have been doing while they've been, at home. And so then we kind of like focus on that for a little bit, and then maybe that will help break up that negative energy and then bring it back. So again, what we're hoping to do is helping students again realize, as we go into, say, more specific mindful activities, is to kind of use that as an example to say, see, we can change the channel sometimes, just to kind of regroup, and we just keep going. We don't have to sit and discuss what just happened or the breakdown of the energy. We just kind of change the channel, and then we regroup, and then again we go. and
I
uh
love
and
to change the channel. Oh my gosh, that is so brilliant, because that's why I swear I feel like they're watching their teacher on TV.
right, absolutely right.
Like,
And I
and they need to change the channel.
Exactly. I because I see it as a parent too. My kiddo is now older. They're a college student, but even in our older students, they also, again, they have these feelings that they're struggling with, whether it's, oh, I have to sit here, as you mentioned, and sit, and they get wiggly as well, and they want to, oh, I lose focus, I'm going to walk away from the laptop while, the professor is talking, or, you know what, I'm going to sit here and I'm not really going to focus, but I'm going to have my screen up so that way, again, it appears that I'm engaged in the class or that I'm learning, but we really know there's no learning happening. So
Right, they
I
have
just,
another tab open, they're playing a video
absolutely.
game or
So I
whatever
tell my
they're
college
doing.
student the same thing. Okay, it's time to change the channel. What do we got to do to get you back on? Because again, this is going to help you, and in that way, see, you can do it. It's we can get through this next 20 minutes, this next 30 minutes, this next whatever it is, the hour. And at the same time, we're helping to build capacity with students so that they're able to hopefully after a while recognize that they were able to then know when they were giving them that self-awareness, like, oh yeah, I did need a break, and then okay, now I'm good to go. So hopefully we're building that capacity within themselves to develop some mechanisms for when they feel that again they are going down maybe a path that isn't going to be healthy for them or is going to get them down deeper into a negative spot where they're now disengaged.
Yeah, because we saw, I mean, a huge drop in attendance of the WebEx meetings in spring. I think because students, they just didn't feel invested. They didn't know what was going on. Plus, we were in crisis mode. Families were losing jobs. Parents were coming in working from home. I mean, there was just so much shuffling going around. But I like because in professional growth, we always say, the student can only pay attention as long as they can, like with what their age is. So if you are teaching an 8-year-old, you got 8 minutes to say something and then they need to do something with their learning. But what I really think is it's even shorter in virtual worlds. I feel like. And then I also like the idea that it doesn't always have to be something about their learning. It could be changing the channel to something completely random and fun and engaging or whatever, and then change and then really quickly just say, okay, that was awesome, let's re-engage now, let's refocus. Because I didn't even think about it as changing the channel into something like a Mad Lib. Are there any other specific approaches you think that teachers could have in their back pocket and pull out if they see their students starting to fade or kind of squirm a little bit in their chairs or start making faces at other kids, because we know students are students and they're all on this WebEx together. um, do you have anything that would help that, or maybe let them all have like a silly moment, where everybody makes faces, or what, anything else you think specifically that teachers could pull out at a moment's notice and just have to help with that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think one of them is going to be for just a quick check of the teacher themselves, like us.
Yeah.
When we're hosting, so many WebEx meetings, if we're the host, do you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I have just been going on and on and on, and I keep hearing myself
Oh yeah.
talk, and I sound monotonous at this point, and I don't even sound like I'm excited about what I'm talking about. When I started, this topic was like the best thing ever, but now I've lost everybody. So what just happened? And so I think it's also just recognizing first and foremost. So, okay, so I need to see, where am I? Am I tired? Am I, projecting? Or kiddos seeing me just all of a sudden I had all this energy going and then now it's kind of flattened out a little bit just because again I'm thinking, oh, I've got to get all this information out to the kiddos, or oh, they're really, for some reason today the kids are all wiggly, and or if they're high school kids or junior high kids, oh, they're really not even engaged in what we're talking about. So is it quickly a quick check? Is it me? Do I need to refocus? Do I need to do something? Where's my body language? Did all of a sudden I slump down in my chair? Did I, do I have the opportunity to stand up and to what I'm doing? Am I just sitting? What am I doing? Do we all need to stand up? And that way, and again, it's those little checks for ourselves. Where are we at? And then other things is we can help increase, say, for example, the opportunity for just peer-to-peer connections, even though we're virtually. Wait, maybe we can ask and get students talking and interacting in a way that, again, by asking those simple questions, or something that could be random or something that applies to the subject matter, but then have the kiddos then address, or students address themselves, versus again me having to lead the conversation. And then maybe that way that will also break it up, but it's having a class discussion that will hopefully then re-engage everyone, because it's something that we could say, okay, so this is going to be a conversation that we're, the way we're going to get through this is if we're all sharing ideas. And I know that can get, somewhat, if everybody's talking at once, but I think what it does is it just kind of breaks up the monotony of continuously hearing, this, maybe that one kiddo that likes to be the one to answer, or I didn't realize that I've been talking for all this time, and maybe I'm the one that needs to stop for just a moment. Because I think sometimes too, when we're virtual, we feel that we have to continue talking to
Mhm.
make up, because we can't have that dead silence virtually, because that sometimes for some seems a little bit more uncomfortable than when you're in person, because you don't have those visual or behavioral cues that you can see how where somebody's at with what you're saying. So I think sometimes that is even a limitation, is we're feeling like we have to fill up all this virtual space with all this talk, and we really don't. Sometimes we can again come up with other things that will help. For example, just even standing up, or let's take a moment and we're going to now practice again our breathing, and we're going to, again, everybody just take a moment, either sit back or whatever you're doing at the moment, and then for sit still and just kind of again practice some mindful breathing. And it doesn't have to be anything that is sophisticated. Nobody has to practice a certain level of yoga practices. It's really just about again being able to do something quickly to kind of help re-engage. And then at other times there's mindful posing for younger students, so we can just have students pose, like just to get them up and get them, going again and get them excited. Let's do a pose that will show me, how do you feel strong, brave, and happy?
Oh, I
And,
like that.
so we move through that. And then again, if we're, that could be something that we do like with the Superman pose, or, for the young female kiddos or students, Wonder Woman, or we can even, start talking to older students again to help them again talk about what mindfulness is. Let's give it a try, and again, let's, and do it in an age appropriate way, where again, let's start chasing some or let's just throw out some words, and kind of let's all collectively, what does that word mean to you? And then that way we're able to engage older students in some type of conversation. And then that kind of takes them off the path again, where it was whatever the subject matter is, or whatever the tone was at the time. It kind of re energizes them, and then again we can come back and then just get back to learning. And those are again those tips and strategies we can use right away. And then we've also have provided in that shell, but then also our social workers and mental health counselors do have available to them other resources that are easily shared out on activities that might take up just a few more minutes, but they're very practical. They can be fit into the routine right away. And it's something that can be done with the natural flow of whatever the teacher is going through. So
Well,
I
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think, it's so funny. I'm thinking back to, so we did a bunch of new teacher orientations, and I'm thinking back to one of my virtual classes. And my first one went okay. I had to do five in a row, and I had 15-minute breaks. It was crazy.
I bet.
And so, but it was really like my first one went okay. But as a teacher, you constantly reflect. And I like that you first said, as a teacher, we need to reflect on ourselves. And I'm tend to be very high energy. That's just how I am, especially when I am teaching. And I could see I was losing some of the teachers. And I think it's so funny because, like, as a teacher, training other teachers, I'm like, dude, control your face. Like, you've got to be able, like, so, like, as a teacher, when you said, think about yourself, I was like, they need to, we all need to think about how do we look to our students right now, because we can't smile for like a half an hour. Our cheeks would, but do we look pleasant? Do we look happy to be there? Do we look engaged with them? Are we, doing that type of thing? And then by my third session, what I would start to do is I was kind of being silly with them. I would say, okay, when you're finished working on this section, because it was silent, and it was kind of awkward, and they were all just like not knowing what to do. But because they were working and some people were still going, I yelled, "Andy's coming!" And I said, when I yell that, I want everybody to pretend to fall asleep, and that's when I know you'll be done. And they all laughed so hard. These adults, so I would yell, "Andy's coming!" from like Toy Story, and all these adults would collapse on their keyboards, and then I could tell they who was done and who wasn't from my WebEx screen. And then when I'd say, "Okay, all clear," they would all wake up, and then as soon as they would wake up, we would do a big stretch backwards, and that's all we would do. And that was just something I just threw in there my third session that I did then my fourth and fifth sessions, because it really did make a difference in that kind of filling that space, and it kind of gave them a mental break. They were able to just kind of lay down for a minute while somebody else was finishing up their work, and then a nice big stretch and move. Okay, we're all clear, we're ready, and now we're ready, we're set to go. Andy's back, he's in, and it was almost like we were Toy Story characters and we were going through this together. And that was just kind of random, and I think that would be helpful for teachers to think of things like that too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if I, and if I can go back to just again, taking care of teachers, taking, helping to take care of themselves is truly going to be the best foundation to lay for for a classroom that is safe and supportive, is for teachers to practice self-care and taking care of themselves. And again, it may sound like a very simple statement, but again, and we carry so much because again, we're nurturers, we're caregivers, we're, we want to make sure that everybody's doing okay and that everybody's learning and everybody's, has what they need in order to learn. And we want to make it, every time that they leave us, that we want to make sure that we've had that positive impact on them and that they, again, felt that they accomplished something. And so we continuously will give, but right now during these times, I think our bucket has been tapped out since March, and even before then for
I
some. But
don't even
it's
know if teachers stopped working this summer. I mean, I see stuff on Facebook or whatever social media, like teachers aren't doing anything. They're just, I'm like, oh, don't even, I literally want to like leap through my screen and be like, teachers are trying desperately to figure out how to help these kids start this school year successfully. And I don't think they have taken time. I always like to just drive. I just get in my car and I don't even go anywhere. I just drive around and listen to a podcast or some songs and sing. And I'm really silly. I like to dance and stuff, but teachers need to find what works for them and boosts them.
absolutely, absolutely. And really again, we those stresses and the not knowing, and I think we're past the point of exhaustion and burnout, that we
Yeah.
don't even know what we're feeling anymore. And for some of us, as I mentioned before, are coming at it from a standpoint just like the kiddos are. But I think when you have that clash of putting everyone together that again has experienced the pandemic in so many different ways,
Yeah.
we just really need to take the moment and some time to again just honor where everyone is coming, recognizing that so many of us have experienced so many different um, actions, thoughts, feelings, behaviors over the last few months. And again, to give us that grace period to just reconnect, to reestablish relationships, to just get to know our school community that is showing up on our device every day. So that way, again, when we're not together until the next day, that our kiddos and our families are feeling that when they again log in the next day, that feeling is going to come back where it's like, okay, this hopefully feels again like home, if you will, even though they are in their home, going through classes or wherever they're at that they're learning. But what I mean by that is that it's that safe and supportive learning environment, what that they know that they've been missing, but haven't realized to what extent until again we get going. and again we've reestablished those relationships and reconnected, and and welcome back um, our students. And then, but again, the kiddos also want to, extend that, I think, the same warmth and love that we want to share with them. It's just a matter of giving ourselves the time and the opportunity to do so, even though I know it's so easy to say, given all the expectations that been laid in front of teachers to do. But at the same time, we know that there is no, until a kiddo feels safe, or even
Yep.
teachers feel safe and healthy, academics are not going. That piece is going to take a long time to come together.
Well, I love that Maslow before Bloom thing, like you just if their needs aren't met, they're not learning any DOK. Like let's just be honest. Like they need to feel loved and they need to feel supported. And they feel that some of them feel that from home, some of them don't. And teachers usually have the kids more than their parents do. So kids are like real flipped upside down right now. Like my kids are so sick of me, and I know it. And I'm like and I'm just like, "Oh, I know you're so used to being in a structured environment with another adult, and that other adult, like, they're not as excited to see me in the morning because like they've just seen me for like the last
Right,
it's funny. I put on makeup the other day to do like training in there and like in a dress, and they were like, oh, "Are you going somewhere?" Like they were almost
right.
excited, like they thought I was. They were gonna get like a babysitter and someone I was gonna leave. I was like, "Well, I'm just doing an online training so I can look nice," and it's so funny. But I mean, yeah, they're just struggling, and I don't know. I mean, okay, so you said you had specific activities. We've got those parents and we've got those teachers that are like, I have to get my stuff in. Where is this going to fit? Do you have like two activities? Besides I think the starting with the three is awesome. I think honoring and giving space and giving breaks throughout the day is fabulous. But like, you said you have a couple activities in the show that they could pull in. What do you think would be a great one just like to do sooner rather than later?
Right. So we have in our Buzz platform, there's some simple activities that are created in how to help build that safe and supportive environment. So we offer that through our trauma informed practices folder as well as our second step, and they are very easily implemented, facilitated. They're limited by the teacher's imagination, because we know that, again, there we have our our teachers are great at expanding, whatever activity we give them, to incorporate that into other areas that they're teaching about. But at the same time, these activities were meant to be practical, where they could be done in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour. And again, they tailor that to the need of the kiddo. So we really provided a mixture of activities and materials that are in there that will, again, hopefully meet the needs, regardless of we're short on, on time, or we have some extended time to actually do a full-blown mindfulness activity on breathing, for example. But again, even in that, that's something that could be done very quickly. So
I
we
mean,
have tried.
honestly, today on rollout day, that would have been they probably that would have probably been a great lesson on breathing. Let's just talk about breathing because I think that would have helped a lot of people. um, but and you said that's a shell that's in every teacher's Buzz platform, right?
Absolutely. It's, and I know that we're, I know tech services and every, global academy, and we, everybody was trying to get everything running, and as far as accessibility. But again, that information is made available to teachers. But no, teachers, please know that the social workers and mental health counselors, whether you're at the elementary, junior high, or high school, have access to that information, and are great resources to help provide that. And even know that if you needed that support for co-facilitation, or for someone to drop in the classroom to kind of help with that activity, if that's something you're still learning, those individuals are there to support you, to support your classroom. So we don't have to do this alone, even though I know a lot of us take so much pride in being able to do that. But again, that collaborative and collective work will truly benefit students, to see that, again, the adults are working together, to get through this. And that again is part of that, just that modeling to emphasize to students is that we really are here for you, and we see you, and we, if you're not showing up, we're going to want to know why, and we're going to make sure that we connect with you. And again, that's the message that we hope that they continually feel every day that they're logging in, and that we're going to grow that with every passing virtual day, as until we can actually see them in person.
Well, and I think just, even putting them in little teams and having them, do little teamworks on like a Google slide, like, team bats or whatever. I don't know why I said bats because it's not even near Halloween. Imagine that's the first thing that came to my head. But like team bats, okay, and you
Great.
have them already all sorted. You're on Google slide 1 and you're working on this. Team llamas, you're on Google slide 2 and you're working on this. And they can comment and use the comment features in Google Slides to just work together, and that teamwork will also help, I think, build that, feeling of I want to get in my WebEx meetings. I want to see my teacher live. This helps me emotionally. It gives me some structure. But yeah, I really, and honestly, I would really need help like in this area. So when you said that a counselor or somebody would come in and coach with me and be there with me as I went with it through this with my students, if I was teaching online right now, like I had a sigh of relief when you said that just now, because I feel like I would need that help. Because I'm not really good at like taking those times to do those things. So I think teachers knowing that there is help that can jump into a WebEx with them and their students is huge.
Absolutely. And even if it's just, again, 5 minutes or a quick
Yeah.
check in or a, hey, I wanted to introduce myself, and, I'm here to help you. And I'm working together with Miss Cadena, and to make sure that, again, we're listening to you. And really, because I again, I know I probably sound like a broken record, but when we're talking about social emotional practices, it's just really, once we can recognize where our students are coming from and what they're facing, and then learn how best we can help them in different ways, that right there is responsive teaching. That alone. And that's really what our, I think, half the battle is just students, and then even as teachers, we just want to feel like we're heard and we're seen and we're recognized for what we may be dealing with, and that's it.
I love
And I
that.
think sometimes that's enough for some. And then so we know that, okay, kiddo's going to be okay. But then other times, whatever they are facing maybe needs a little bit more support. And then that's when we will add that more, that additional support. And then, sometimes if it goes to the level of a higher need, well, then we'll address that as well. But I think, again, just recognizing and even making the attempt to understand what they're facing. Again, we're not going to be that perfect person that can sit and understand every situation that every person has gone through. But again, that empathy and that compassion that we can show each other through modeling, and then just again, recognizing where people are coming from, our students, our colleagues, again, I think that is going to go a long way in helping. And again, it's good practice.
Well, and it's going to establish core relationship building that needs to happen. That if I hope soon they get to go back to school and see that teacher face to face, it's not awkward. It's not like,
Absolutely.
oh, it's that like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to finally see you, in person. I think that would be huge for students. And if a teacher has a student write something or is noticing something that is a little bit more serious, who would be the best person for that teacher to reach out to in this
That
environment?
Right. One of the great things that I feel that we have as far as support systems go in each of our school sites is our behavioral health team. They can reach out to a behavioral health team member, that it consists of, whether you're at the elementary, junior high, or high school, that consists of social worker, counselor, school psychologist, a school nurse, and an administrator. And we encourage the use of that team, because that means that there is a set of professional behavioral health specialists on each campus that are there for the primary reason of supporting the whole child, which is again the social and emotional needs of our kiddos, but then also for our staff. So that is a great resource that we are really proud to say that we have available at each campus. And I also will always be ready and wanting to help if someone wants to reach out to myself. I am more than happy to support in the best way that I can.
All right, I love it. Okay, Susie. So I'm just going to reiterate. I mean, I love the fact that you said that we just need to have good management skills. We just need to turn the channel. I love turn the channel. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna love it. I love turn the channel, and I love that you said that you've got a ton of activities that range from 5 minutes to an hour, where teachers can really just pull in this and not feel like it's just this other layer that they have to add. Because I know already they feel stretched thin, and we want them to take care of themselves so they can take care of their students. So, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up the interview? I mean, this has been so great. I'm so glad that you came on today.
Well, and again, I am just so grateful for the opportunity because I cannot stress the importance of, again, giving ourselves, a break and cutting ourselves some slack. I am very much also one that, I'm so passionate about the work that I do that I feel myself at times. I've had to learn how to do it because it didn't naturally come to me, where I get to the point where I'm so exhausted that I don't feel like I can give anymore, but at the same time realizing, well, that should be my sign that I need to then keep myself in check. And what do I need to do to take care of myself? Because again, we do not know what is coming. So we want to make sure that the self-care that we're doing is going to preserve our sustainability. Because when kiddos do come back, we're going to be so excited. When it's healthy and safe to do so, we're going to be so excited that we're going to want to put all of our energy back into being in person. So we need everyone to be you know taking care of themselves, because we need everyone. When we get back, we need everybody even more, because again, kiddos are going to be so excited to be back. And I would say 99.9% of kiddos are going to be so glad to be back at
Yeah.
school. And at the same time, we know where we do our best work, and that is in front of our students. And we want to make sure through that self-care and that preservation is that we make sure that we take care of ourselves, because again, that's when we can take it back to our kiddos to help them learn the skills necessary to understand and regulate their emotions, so that way they can feel and show empathy for others around them, and also help them and establish and maintain positive relationships with, again, everyone around them, which will truly benefit them in the long run. So again, we want to just make sure that we are building that capacity, because we know that the alternative is non-negotiable. You know,
It really is. I mean, my Mayo doctor always tells me hydrate and regulate.
mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. That is so true.
And I laugh. I laugh every time he says it, because I did. I burned the candle at both ends, and I got real ill, and my body just couldn't keep going, and I did not have that self care. And I think training ourselves first, and recognizing where our points are, where like when we just need to stop and really take care of ourselves is important. And I think is the more we model that for kids, the more kids are going to start realizing, oh my gosh, I need to stop. This is my stopping point. I can't do anymore. I need to stop
Absolutely.
and take a break.
Absolutely. And that
So
way, and also to know that once they do reach a point, though, if they do need to reach out, that they know exactly where to go, who is going to be that support system for them. So that way, again, they can be ready to thrive in their classroom setting.
I love it. I love it so much, Susie. Thank you so much for coming on. If anybody needs to get in contact with you, how can they do that? If they just email you?
Yes, please email me. We also have a link on the district website through the GPS wellness resources on the district website. as well as the student support and prevention programs link on the district website. And it has my contact information for email and also my phone. And again, please reach out no matter what.
And I will link all that in the show notes so that people have that available to them. So that if they need some more or they're really interested in this and they're thinking, yeah, this is exactly what I need in my life right now with my students, I hope they do reach out, and I hope that they take away this idea that we really need to purposefully put in some time with our kids for SEL, even if it's just those little breaks, even if it's those questions, and just being organized and having some good management. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Learning Unlocked and finding out more about social emotional learning and trauma-informed education and the importance of spreading that out throughout the school day for the health and well-being of all of our students. Even though this interview was done while we were still in the middle of remote learning and now we have transitioned back into the classroom for many teachers, I still loved Susie's idea of, taking those breaks, taking those times to change the channel. I think that is just as important in face-to-face learning as it is in virtual learning. Just a reminder that we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GPS Prof Growth. That's at GPS PROF GROWTH. If you have listened today as a GPS educator, you can receive PD recertification credit by visiting our Employee Hub page and navigating to Digital PD on Demand. For more information or resources from this episode, please visit our website at learningunlocked.libsyn.com/website. Libsyn is spelled LIBSYN. Thanks again, key holders. Keep unlocking curiosity, creativity, and innovation with your students. See you next time.